Hey Rip City, this is DeAndre Ayton, and it's time to open the briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino, a special 2025 NBA Draft edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I am your host, Casey Holdahl, and the Portland Trail Blazers, keeping them guessing at the 2025 NBA Draft, start with the 11th pick, trade down to 16, end up drafting Yang Hansen out of China, who they've been scouting for a couple years. We'll talk about the pick. We'll talk about the surprise the Trailblazers pulled on the rest of the NBA in the first round. And we'll discuss Yang's game and how he might fit into the Trailblazers and the NBA on this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, maybe the overarching goal of any draft is to protect your hand. The best way to go about entering a draft, be it an NBA draft or any other professional sports, is to not let other teams know what your plan is, to guard those things, and to be a surprise when you're on the clock. A lot of times it doesn't happen. Everybody talks. The league has a lot of people doing intel, so everyone kind of generally has an assumption about maybe what players teams like, maybe where teams are slotting in particular players. And while teams don't necessarily know exactly what the other 29 teams are doing, generally they feel like they have a decent sense of kind of which direction teams are going. That cannot be the case for the Portland Trail Blazers, absolutely surprising the entire NBA by taking Yang Hansen out of China with the 16th pick. The way it started, Trailblazers with the 11th pick end up drafting Cedric Coward, who I know a lot of Trailblazer fans were interested in, started his career at Willamette, then Eastern Washington, then Washington State, was going to go to Duke, but then decided to declare for the NBA draft. So that was the 11th pick, but news came out right away that that pick was actually going to Memphis. Trailblazers were getting, in exchange for the draft right to Cedric Coward, the 16th pick, a 2028 first-round pick from the Orlando Magic, and 2 future second-round picks. They used the 16th pick, as I mentioned, to draft Yang Hansen, 7'1", 250-pound center, turning 20 years old today on Thursday, so just turning 20 years old. Happy birthday, Yang. And so the Trailblazers going completely off board there with a player that I don't know that anyone had him going in the first round. I know teams are interested in him, obviously. And now that kind of Portland made that pick, you're starting to see more and more kind of discussion about like, yeah, this guy looked pretty good and seems like he's got a lot of talent. Maybe not necessarily expecting him to go in the first round, but the Trailblazers were able to move back and they got draft assets by moving back and still were able to get the player that they've targeted and did so while not letting anybody in the league basically know what their plan was, which they executed that plan to perfection. Now it's going to be seen how well Yang Hansen fits in with the Trailblazers and gets up to the speed of the game. You watch his highlight package, tons and tons of talent. There's already discussion about him being the Chinese Jokic. Joe Cronin kind of, you don't want to put a limit on a guy. It was like, obviously Jokic is a one of one, but having kind of a similar skill set, a guy with that kind of size, who's able to pass, who's able to create for others, who's able to shoot from distance, who's got great footwork, who's able to score in the paint as well. A great defender, the defensive player of the year 2 years ago in the Chinese league, rising star the last 2 years in the Chinese league, and a guy who, has all of those measurables, but also a ton of talent. And also, I know one of the things the Blazers really liked about him is he loves basketball and seems like a guy who is very excited to come to the United States and prove what he can do. And again, a player that I obviously is surprised. No one had him going in the middle of the first round. I don't know if anyone had him going in the first round, which is why the Trailblazers were able to get some draft capital from the Grizzlies, but they didn't want to chance it too much, and that's kind of the thing when you move back. So obviously the Trailblazers had targeted Yang in this draft. That much is obvious now. They went into this draft with Yang as their number. Well, I guess I won't say number one because perhaps maybe they had some guys who went in the first 10 picks ahead of Yang. I'd be pretty surprised if that was the case. I think the plan was to take Yang Hansen in this draft no matter what. The question was, how far back can we go while still feeling confident that we're going to be able to draft him, while also being able to get some assets from the teams that are trading up to get the rights, in this case, to Cedric Coward. And so the Trailblazers, they moved back 5 spots and got a first-round pick, 2028, from the Orlando Magic. via the Memphis Grizzlies. Yet to be seen kind of what that pick looks like. The Magic seem like they're a team that are improving, but it only takes one injury for a team to kind of have to pull the cord on a season. So we'll see where that pick ends up. Also, getting the second round picks. One of those, I just had that up and now I forgot it. Second round pick, 2027 second round pick from Atlanta, 2028 second round pick from Sacramento. All those obviously coming from Memphis, but via those various locations. So the Trailblazers get the player that they targeted, get some draft capital in exchange, a first round pick and two second round picks. And also, when you move back, that changes the salary slot that player is in too. So, I mean, I don't think that was any part of their kind of motivations for it, but spending a little less money with the 16th pick than they would have with the 11th pick. So they end up getting a player that, as I mentioned, they've been scouting for years. Joe Cronin said that both Mike Schmitz and Sergey had gone to China 2 years ago to scout Yang, and Blazers playing the Chinese national team in a scrimmage at Summer League last year that I believe also included Yang. Had him in a workout on May 29th. One of the workouts they had with first round guys. He was in the workout with Asa Newell and Rasheer Fleming, Will Riley, Liam McNeely, and one other guy who's Noah Penda as well. So it was a participant in that workout. So was already in Portland. Was with Clutch. Participated in the workout, the Clutch Pro Day that they had in Los Angeles a few weeks back as well. So he's been in the United States. He was expecting to get drafted. Obviously, he was at Barclays Center with Rich Paul, had to come down through the stands to get onto the stage since he didn't get invited to the green room, which again, just goes to show how well the Trailblazers kept that kind of close to the vest, in that he didn't even get a green room invite, and they gave green room invites to, I think, 30 players this year. So the Blazers doing a really good job, again, of hiding their plan, and now we'll see if kind of all the work they put in, one, with the scouting, and two, I don't know if you necessarily call it subterfuge, but definitely, again, being very cagey about what they were planning to do with the 2025 NBA draft. We'll now see if all those things pay off. The other part about that too is, a lot of times international players, particularly with young players, there's sometimes an assumption that maybe they're going to stay for another year or two to continue to develop before coming to the United States. It doesn't sound like that will be the case with Hansen. It sounds like he will be coming over to the United States. He's already here now, obviously. I suspect that he will be in town on Friday for a press conference, and will begin his career as a Portland Trailblazer. I would assume that he's going to play at a summer league. I don't know if there's any international competitions going on this summer that China would be a part of that he would be playing in, but he is going to be in town here within the next couple days, and I would fully suspect that maybe he even stays here and starts his preparations for summer league. And I would imagine that he is going to play at summer league with the Trailblazers, which should be exciting. But real quick, let's go ahead and just read the press release real fast here, just to make sure that we get everything right. Portland Trailblazers have acquired the draft rights to center Yang Hansen, the number 16th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, as well as a 2028 first round pick via Orlando, a 2027 second round pick via Atlanta, and a 2028 second round pick via Sacramento from the Memphis Grizzlies in exchange for the draft rights to Cedric Coward, who Portland selected with the 11th pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Yang, listed at 7'1", 253 pounds, has spent the last 2 seasons playing for the Qingdao Eagles senior team in China's top professional league, the CBA, coming off a 2024-25 season in which he averaged 16.6 points, 10.5 rebounds, 3.0 assists, 2.6 blocks in 32.8 minutes per game in 45 contests. Obviously, those are great numbers. A guy of Hansen's size, 19 years old, playing almost 33 minutes a game, that's really impressive. For a guy that size, to be able to move and to play that many minutes in a very good league in China, I think says a whole lot about kind of where he's already at right now in terms of his fitness and his development physically. Yang was named as CBA Rising Star of the Year in each of the last 2 seasons with the Qingdao as well as the 2023-24 CBA Defensive Player of the Year and an All CBA Domestic Players First Team selection and a CBA All-Star for both the 2023-24 and the 2024-25 seasons. The Zibo Shandong China native also competed in the 2023 FIBA U19 World Cup for China, averaging 12.6 points, 10.4 rebounds, 4.9 assists, and an event high 5.0 blocks per game. So really a little bit of everything with Janssen. You get a great offensive player. He's got the skills to be a great offensive player, all the tools. He can shoot from outside, mid-range game, face-up game, post game, but also a phenomenal passer. When you see kind of some of the highlight packages that are going out now, a lot of those passes, I mean, obviously having the size to be a passer really helps, but having the willingness too, and being a guy who really wants to get his teammates involved, that's a really good thing to have at the center position. And then the defensive end, great instincts, a guy who's going to be a rim protector, who obviously has the size and the length to be an elite shot blocker in the NBA. So he's got all the tools. He's got all of the things you want in a center. And, I think we've seen, after a few years of everyone kind of moving away from big centers, seems like those guys are starting to come back, particularly centers that have a lot of skills. Yeah, if you're kind of a ground bound center who is more of a post guy who doesn't really have a good handle or a good ability to get other guys involved, yeah, you might have a hard time kind of in today's NBA. But if you're someone who's able to operate out of the high post or the low post, create for others, have cutters, you don't want to invoke the name Arvydas Sabonis because it's hallowed and he is one of the greatest to ever do it. But I think that's kind of the archetype that you're looking at when you're looking at a guy. If he's able to reach his full potential, that's the kind of player that I think the Trailblazers feel he could be. And I mean, obviously, when people are calling him Chinese Jokic, I mean, Jokic is at that level of player as Arvydas Sabonis, and maybe a bit better. Obviously, if we had got to see Arvydas when he was healthy, maybe that's a different conversation. But either way, that style of center, enormous, able to create for himself and for others, and a smart defensive positional player who has the length to block shots. In today's NBA, you got to be able to kind of defend out to the perimeter a little bit as well. The fact he's able to shoot the three, it will at least draw defenses away from the paint, which is going to create things for the other players or guards, especially. Yet to be seen is if he's able to defend out that far. But again, you kind of see his footwork. He's not a plodding center. Like he seems nimble, light on his feet. It doesn't seem like, I mean, he's not like chugging up and down the floor. Like he looks fluid for a guy who's 7'1", 253 pounds. So, again, while it might have been a surprise for him to get selected where he got selected, that's really, I think, more a function of just, what I talked about on the last edition of the briefcase, which is that there's just not the same level of kind of draft intelligence out there that there used to be. And so if you're a team like the Blazers that, again, wants to keep things quiet, doesn't want other teams to know what they're doing, one, because they want to keep everyone off center, but also they don't want another team to be like, well, maybe we should look at this guy a little bit closer and see if, he's got the skills that we want. You've already heard there are a couple other teams, Brooklyn being one of those teams that supposedly had interest. So, the fact that he did get taken when people weren't when people at all weren't expecting to get taken there. I mean, part of that, I think, is, maybe he wasn't as valued as much in other organizations as he was by the Trailblazers. But I'm guessing maybe they didn't have as much intel, haven't seen him as many times as the Trailblazers have. Again, they've seen him at least 3 times in person, sending the scouts to China a couple years ago, seeing him at Summer League last year, and then seeing him at their practice facility in Tualatin at the end of May. They probably have a bigger book on him maybe than some of the other teams did. And so while, again, it might be surprising where he got picked, I don't think it's surprising to see a player with his skills and measurables and the notion of what he could be as an NBA player. That isn't surprising to me. I think, once you get over the initial shock of like, oh boy, none of us were really expecting that to happen, and you start to kind of consider what kind of player is Yang Hansen? What does he do on a floor that is transferable to the NBA? Where is he at in his development process? what has the competition been like that he's played against both domestically and internationally? And what does that tell us about maybe how quickly he might be able to make the jump to the NBA? All those things are questions that you have to answer about a player. And I believe the Blazers felt like they had done enough work to answer those questions and felt very comfortable about drafting him in the first round. And they're also able to extract some assets while doing so as well. So they get the player they want, and they get 3 draft assets as well, including a first round pick that first round pick for the Larry Nance trade with the Bulls is still out there in the ether. So like until that gets resolved, that can make it difficult to do trades when it comes to draft picks. So having additional first round draft picks opens up some flexibility in terms of being able to trade picks as well for any other moves they might be making. And that's kind of the last thing I'll say, the way I'll close it out here. And this is something that Joe Cronin did address in this press conference is you look at Portland's roster now and they have 5 centers. You have DeAndre Ayton, you have Robert Williams III, you have Donovan Clingan, you have Duop Reith, and now you have Yang Hansen. 5 centers is a lot for any team to be carrying. That is a third of your team for one position. And I don't really think that any of those guys necessarily can play like the 4. You can make an argument for DeAndre, but he's a 5. You can make the Duop. I think it's probably the guy you can most claim is a 4. But either way, you got 5 guys who all kind of play the same position. Probably going to need to figure that out. I would be shocked if the Blazers went into the 2025-26 season carrying 5 centers on their roster. So we'll see how that plays out. Obviously there's already been one reported trade. It hasn't been finalized yet. So people like myself and Joe Cronin, not that I'm necessarily comparing myself to Joe, but not supposed to be talking about those things just yet, but you've seen the reports. So the Blazers have already engaged in at least one trade this offseason. I suspect that they're going to be a part of multiple trades this offseason. And I think, we've already seen a lot of action in the NBA. It's not a big free agency year. So the assumption is that a lot of teams are going to be looking to make trades in order to improve their team or to reset their teams, which I think we're already seeing multiple teams, particularly in the Eastern Conference, going ahead and making some moves to kind of prepare themselves for the next phase of their franchises. And the Trailblazers doing that as well by drafting Yang Hansen with the 16th pick, by trading back, also getting a first round pick, 2028 from the Orlando Magic, and 2 second-round picks of 2027 and 2028. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, as I mentioned, Friday press conference, I would assume, with Yang Hansen. So more to come in terms of what he says from that press conference and just getting to know him a little bit. So you're definitely going to want to be on the lookout for that, both here and on trailblazers.com and on all of our social channels as well. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. As I mentioned, it's going to be an exciting offseason. A lot of transactions this offseason. You got Summer League coming up here just in a few weeks. I will be down in Las Vegas covering the action there. Seeing Yang Hansen getting his first run as a Portland Trailblazer, I would assume. And should be interesting. Should be a transitional offseason for the Trailblazers. I think a lot of the things that people have been assuming throughout the last couple seasons they might need to address, I think this is a year those things get done. Thank you for joining me. As always, we'll talk again soon. I'm Casey Holdahl. You've been watching The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Go Blazers.